Let's get started.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. How would I do that again? Welcome, everybody, to Heart Mind Alchemy Live podcast. I'm your host, Holly Copeland, coach and meditation coach, human potential coach, and sound healer. And I am very excited today to welcome back for the third time meditation teacher and coach, Kevin Schoeninger. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Holly. Great to be on.
Thank you. I'm super excited to have you back here today. Kevin is an author and teacher of mind-body training. And he's one of my meditation teachers as well through the Subtle Energy Meditation course. And I've just learned so much from you, Kevin. I just so appreciate your depth of knowledge. And when I mean, you can feel it, you know, in working with you. And then when I read through all the different things you've done, Tai Chi, Qigong, mindfulness meditation, centering prayer, Kriya Yoga, Holy Fire Reiki, and you've just done so much. And I just really appreciate your wealth of knowledge. And then you also studied philosophy and have a degree in philosophy from Villanova. And Kevin and I were on a hike recently, and it's just really such a joy and inspiring to talk to you about all of that side from what you come from. Because
yeah, we had a great talk on phenomenology of consciousness and how that leads into meditation. And
yeah, it's fascinating. I want to go on many more long hikes with you because I can feel like I could talk to you for hours. So just, yeah, you're such an inspiring person and a wise teacher in my life. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Holly.
Yeah.
That's kind. Thank you.
Well, so I'm really excited today to talk about going beyond with subtle energy meditation.
Yes. Great article that you just published. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's always so much fun to write those articles because it's really, as a lot of people say, you know, we do it almost for ourselves to really learn to write. In order to write, you have to learn the material and get really clear, and concepts that may seem fuzzy get really clear and bring up more questions.
Yeah, exactly. Writing and teaching are two of the best ways to learn, right?
Exactly. And so it brought up all kinds of questions, and they continue to come. So I just hope we can explore some of those topics today, and that people will find value in that.
Great. Love to.
Great. So this idea of going beyond with subtle energy meditation, I think a really great place to start is just first to lay the foundation by saying, you know, what is subtle energy? And I, you know, laid that out in my article somewhat, talking about chi and prana, these energy circuits in the body and the biofield. But I would love for you to give your perspective on what subtle energy really is and how it relates to going beyond.
Great. Yeah. So I think we can approach this in a number of different ways. You can approach it kind of from a scientific lens and say, well, what is it? You know, trying to define it as a thing and something we can measure and so on. And that's a little fuzzier, right? We haven't nailed down how to measure chi, although we measure many correlates of chi in the body, and we measure how chi flow affects physiological function. And there is an idea that I think has a lot of merit that there's in a life force or electrical flow through the connective tissue system in our body that connects every cell in the body and supplies charge to all the cells in the body. And I think there's a lot that can be discovered by going down that road and seeing what measurements we can do for this flow of electric charge through the body. And there has been a lot of research in that area. Dr. Robert Becker did a lot of experimentation in the 60s and 70s with this, and there are others who have carried on this research. And electricity is used in healing in Western medicine. I mean, there's electrical stimulation to regrow bones and so on. So the idea that the body is an electrical system is a part of Western medicine, but probably a very undervalued and not well understood component. So there's that. There's this flow of electrical charge through the body and ways it may be able to be measured. And in ancient Chinese practice of Qigong and traditional Chinese medicine, it's this flow of energy, subtle energy through the body, the smooth flow of subtle energy through the body that's viewed as the basis for health. So health is seen as an effect of smooth energy flow through the body, and illness is seen as some kind of disruption in that smooth energy flow. And that disruption could happen through a physical injury, could happen through emotional tension, which constricts the connective tissue or creates knots in the energy system along the energy channels, or it can be through thought patterns, the way we're thinking about things, that can affect the connective tissue network and the flow of energy through the body. So it's really a holistic approach to looking at human health, well-being, and flourishing, to see that when there's smooth flow of energy through the system, there's vitality and a feeling of aliveness and wellness and brightness to the system. And when there's stagnation or disruption in energy flow, that's when we're open to illness, susceptible to illness and or chronic conditions, whether they're emotional in nature or thought pattern in nature or from some kind of physical trauma that we've been through. So you can approach it in that way. And then there's also this felt sense. And in subtle energy meditation, that's really what we try to have people focus into, and to awaken, use interoception, the ability to sense inside our bodies, to awaken a felt sense of energy flow in the body. And as we tune into the body and start to awaken sensory awareness, first through kind of physiological sensations, like feeling contact of your feet on the ground, or feeling the sensations in your hands, or feeling the sensation that arises when you draw your posture upright, feeling the sensation when you put a subtle smile on your lips, feeling the sensations of breathing. So it starts really with those kind of physiological senses, that felt sense in the body. And then through the breath, as we focus into the breath and we start to feel the quality of the breath, then we start to get a sense for this energy flow through the body. So the breath is kind of a bridge into energy flow and sensing energy flow, which is a little more subtle sensation than the breath is. And so we start with maybe the coarse sensations of posture, and then breathing, which is a little subtler. And then through breathing, we can tune into an even subtler sensation of energy flow. And then we use that real fine sensory awareness to go into what we call objectless imagery. So feeling, actually having a felt sense of stillness and a felt sense of silence and a felt sense of spaciousness. And then those qualities, as we really tune in and we feel stillness, and it's a palpable feeling. You can feel stillness, and you listen to silence. Listen to the silence underneath the sounds around you. And you feel the space of your body and then the space around you. And there's a whole nother felt sense of something beyond this hard physical material reality. There's, as we feel energy, energy itself is very flowing and permeable. And if you feel your body as energy, you can also start to feel the space around you energetically. The space feels alive. And as you start to, so those energy senses lead you into these more subtle senses of spaciousness and stillness and silence. And through those, then there's a sense of awareness within which all this is arising, right? So this vast, open, boundless, timeless sense of awareness. So it's like going through these different layers and peeling them away one by one. My master's thesis in phenomenology was on consciousness as an onion, right? And so think kind of peeling away the physical layer, and then the layer of thoughts and emotions, and then breath and energy, and peeling away, and an onion has no core, right? So when you peel away the last layer, you're left just with open space. You're left with this vast, boundless space of awareness itself. And so that's the process of transcendence in subtle energy meditation, is to go through those layers, each more subtle than the last, until you're simply resting as awareness itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful and very helpful to hear you go through that sort of systematically. And it strikes me as you were talking, contrasts can often be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And it strikes me that a different meditation technique like mindfulness meditation as taught by John Kabat-Zinn, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against that method, but it doesn't do the same thing. It doesn't look at, as I understood it and was originally taught it in my human potential course that I was certified in, it doesn't use an approach of interoception to kind of go into these deeper layers or levels of onion-like ways that subtle energy meditation. So subtle energy meditation does feel very different than that, for example, which many people watching might be familiar with.
And
is that true?
Yeah, it's. Oh, I think the mindfulness is kind of where we start in the meditation. Like we start with that sensory awareness, right? And that's very much that mindfulness, that paying attention in a sensory way, being open to sensations and just watching them and feeling them and sensing them and feeling them shift and noticing the shift, and having that relationship of equanimity and curiosity with whatever happens. I think that's where we start in subtle energy meditation, with that kind of mindfulness meditation. So it is a foundation, right? It's a step or a stage of the practice, and it leads us in to the practice. And then it allows us to, once we are kind of in this space of curiosity and equanimity and sensory clarity within the body and in the environment, then we kind of start going deeper and going through the layers from there.
Yeah. So it's like, that's what I hear you saying, is that's the beginning.
That's the beginning, and a really firm foundation. And then if you look at like Dr. Jeff Tarrant's different styles of meditation, he has mindfulness and then focused attention. So the next kind of step in subtle energy meditation is that focused attention. So we focus attention on breathing, particularly on sensations of breathing in the abdomen or lower dantian, and start to cultivate a vital energy there. And then we focus into energy flow up through the body and into an energy flow that's even outside the body and above the body. And so there's a real concentrated attention practice next. And then out of that, we drop into the heart, which is another one of his meditation styles. And then we breathe in an open-hearted awareness, really feeling love and compassion in the heart, radiating out from the heart. And then we drop down into a quiet mind practice, right? Into stillness, silence, and spaciousness. And then through those objectless objects of attention, we then kind of release out and surrender and let go into that vast, boundless awareness. So I think it's a meditation style that we've incorporated all of these different techniques in one progressive sequence, which I think each step of that really feeds the next step.
Yeah.
So if you go right into, awareness of awareness right away, you don't have all those kind of inner skills and that natural progression that will lead you to really be able to go into that vast boundlessness at the end. Which if you do the mindfulness and the focused attention, which into absorption, then attention becomes effortless and focused. And through that absorption, and then filling it with the emotion of the heart and the love and compassion of the heart, you really have this energized space and energized attention that then enables you to drop deeply into stillness without just falling asleep, or, like if you go just into stillness and you can without doing the posture points and the energy and the focusing, you can tend to kind of get in that hypnagogic state where you're just kind of dreamy, right? But when you've gone through this sequence where you're really heightening sensory clarity and heightening focused attention, heightening energy and emotion, and then from that really absorbed, alive sense, then you're dropping into a deep stillness. And that stillness, you can maintain clarity and awareness in the stillness, right? And you can, so I think that's a really key part, because I see a lot of times in meditation, people kind of dropping into this dreaminess where they're kind of drifting in and out of consciousness and not having that clarity of awareness. So the sequence is really geared toward enabling that clarity of awareness as you are moving out into this boundless experience.
Yeah, that's super helpful to have you describe that. And again, like another kind of contrast question that comes up for me as I hear you describe that is, okay, you generate this mindfulness, but you don't stop there. You go into concentration, into absorption. So you have that sensory awareness and equanimity. You drop into concentration and absorption, in which point you use that in order to go up in through the central channel to open up into this energized state. Whereas, say, in a Theravada Buddhism tradition, for example, you would stay there in concentration and absorption and facilitate a jhana, state entry, and use that gateway, but stay, right? So that's fundamentally very different, to kind of stay versus leave. And so could you describe, I mean, my understanding of, where LLP, for those, just because we didn't say it, I think what Kevin is describing is the light, love, and peace meditation. That's the culminating meditation in the subtle energy meditation series. So just for clarity and transparency.
Right.
And in the LLP meditation, which, I practiced for a year or two when we were doing the course and in teacher training. And so it drops you into this, deep stillness in the lower dantian.
Right. And prior to that, then there's this, the love in the heart is a really important component to amplify the felt sense, but also to purify it and kind of condition it with that felt sense of love and compassion. So it's not just this pure light energy, right, which you could just feel this brightness, but it's also kind of been purified in the love of the heart, which adds this amplification and this whole other felt sense and quality that really is also transforming of consciousness.
It's very different than the light, for example, right?
Yes. So you have that, and then the heart, and then all of that is brought down and into stillness.
Right.
gives you this really, so then, you know, in the end of the practice, you're in this awareness, but it's very luminous. It's luminous, and there's a natural felt sense of compassion and love and deep peace and luminosity.
Yeah. And so again, like the, you know, jhana states, if you were to just do that practice, you know, they also instruct you to kind of cultivate kind of a love of the breath. I mean, essentially they're sort of doing the same thing but they're not directing you into the heart so much as to just fall in love with the breath, for example.
Right. Or feel a quality of beauty in the breath, right? Yeah. Which is, it's a different quality. It's right. Beauty can be emotion, you know, it's engaging that emotion, which I think that experiencing the quality is really important. Some felt quality. So beauty is a quality that you can really absorb into, right? And so is light or peace or love. Yeah. These are felt qualities that take you into absorption.
Right. Ultimately, just to be clear, if we're comparing jhana with subtle energy, they're taking you to the same place in a different way. Is that right? From your perspective?
Yeah, as I look at the, you know, the stages of practice, the first four jhanas, building up this energy and bliss and piti, sukha, and then taking you into absorption that becomes stillness, right? And then through that stillness, there's an opening of boundless space, and that space is alive with consciousness. It's unlimited consciousness. And then, since it's a vast, open, boundless, undivided space, there's a sense of nothingness, because there's no things separated from other things. So it's no thing, it's just this experience of nothing. And then there's what Ajahn Brahm calls neither perception nor non-perception. It's just like the mind is shut down, but there's awareness. Okay, so yeah, but in, you know, and then there's in that system, you know, in Ajahn Brahm, he's talking about that as well. There's no control there. You can't control going in and out of it. It's just this, you know, it's a state that you could be in for hours or days, and then you just come out when you come out, sort of thing. Now with Lee Brasington, he describes it more kind of like we do in subtle energy meditation, where you are going through, like he talks about running the jhanas, that you can go up and down, like sequentially. You can run it in order consciously, as a conscious process. And that's more like what we're doing in subtle energy meditation, where we're consciously making these shifts. The shifts are very natural, and they just kind of open up and happen, one leading into the next, but there is a transition there's some conscious control of, okay, now we're going to open up, peel away this layer now. Okay, now. And so if you're doing it as a guided meditation, you know, where you're listening, that kind of sequence is guided for you. But as you know the sequence, and you do it so that, and the way I do it in my own practice every day is, so I know the sequence, but I'm kind of waiting until each step has come to fruition, right? Until it's fully arisen. And I'm being with that, and then that's leading me to the next step. And then just resting in that, and it just leads in this sort of inner timing, this natural cycle, into the next step in the sequence. And then really importantly is how you come out of that. Stephen and I just did a video today talking about how important it is to then, as you come, open your eyes and you feel this space around you, to see this space just as you see that vast space when your eyes are closed and you're meditating, that there's no, the practice is that there's no meditation and then now I'm coming out, oh, and here, now I'm in my life, and it's completely different, right? It's to make that transition so seamless that this is just awareness with thoughts and feelings and actions just arising as because of the combination of forces that is awareness itself. And so there's no, okay, coming back from meditation, there's an awareness that you've cultivated, yes, and you've deepened, and now it's seeing all of this and all of life just as an expression of this, so that that's just that the background for all perception.
The meditation is always already occurring.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't step out of it. It's just that in one, there's things arising that you're aware of. And then in the other, well, things arise too, but at some point in a deep meditation, they sort of stop arising. There's a more clarity in there.
Yeah. And certainly in practice, you have, it's like a formal, okay, here's a time where I'm cultivating in a sequential way these aspects of awareness. And now as I bridge from that into, okay, going about my day, it's keeping that sense of vast awareness as the space within which all the events of life arise. So there's no difference between an activity in my real life and what happens in meditation, right? There's no real life versus meditation. Everything is alive with awareness and an expression of awareness itself.
Yeah, that's my experience as well. Really, there's a feeling of just that all the impermanence just feels sort of okay.
Yeah, and right, so that impermanence is a really important insight in meditation. When you're experiencing, one of the gifts of meditative awareness is that you notice things as arising and dissolving. And so that then you realize, well, everything's like that, right? This little form labeled Kevin and that one labeled Holly is just a temporary converging of energy formations that are arising and moving around and then dissolving, and it's all a play of awareness. This is awareness talking to awareness. This is just a play of the field of awareness itself. And there's no substantial form at all. Everything is just a coming together of forces and fields merging and dissolving. And that gives a whole different felt sense to life, right? It's like we're not trying to hang on to this sense of me as this solid thing, which will dissolve under inquiry anyway, but we still have an idea that we're this thing that we want to endure. And as you go through these layers, you realize that that's just a mental construction that is not actually valid.
Yeah, the consciousness just opens up to itself. Yeah. One thing that we might touch on a little bit, because I touch on this in the article, is some of the neural correlates of the way the brain is responding, and actually biologically, because I know you've done a lot of exploration with, heart coherence and the galvanic skin response. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you see the brain changing through these practices.
Yeah. So we've definitely done some really good experimentation, and enough experimentation to know that there's so much more to know, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much variety in the way that people experience, not so much in how they experience the states. There seems to be a lot of commonality in that, but there seems to be a lot of variety in how it expresses in brainwaves. And I think Jeff in his book has a lot of good information on the different brainwave correlates with these different styles of meditation. But when I was, through all the muse graphs and other flow time graphs and going to the lab and so on, I think that the three things that were most prominent were alpha generation in certain parts of the brain, especially in the default mode network. And alpha is kind of a suppressive brainwave, right? So there's a suppression of that narrative sense of self, and then a kind of a theta dominance through the midline of the brain and in the prefrontal cortex. And so those were really prevalent in all the different states that were being measured. Because when I went into the lab, I was going through all these different meditation styles, and we were saying, oh, well, how does that affect the brain? How does that affect the brain? And so on. And then there's this curious high beta gamma readings, which is, so that's debatable what that is. There's in the felt sense, if we go back to the felt sense, when we're in these highly energized states, that's when these gamma waves show up in the brainwave graphs and in the brain maps. And so what's happening? Are they really brainwaves, or is it something else that's being picked up?
Yeah.
And the feeling, the felt sense is that it's like an electrical charge. So it feels like the whole brain is lit up, or
the body, right? I mean, that's my experience.
Everywhere in the body. After doing, decades of Qigong, really, that's the felt sense in my whole body, that my whole body is an electrical system that's lit up. And actually that the air around me is charged too. And so there's something about this electrical charge, and it's coming through as gamma waves, but then maybe or maybe not, right? It may be stimulating these electrical pathways, or stimulating even muscular activation pathways. We haven't gotten to where we can really measure that and say accurately what that is, but we can say in a felt sense, there's an amazing felt sense in the body that feels like you're plugged into electric socket in the best possible way, not in a shocking way, but in, oh, I feel alive. I feel very bright and clear and alive and connected with everything. And that really transforms consciousness. So whatever it is correlated to in terms of physiological responses, it gives a whole different orientation to life when you feel alive like that, and when you feel connected to all of life. That really is transforming to consciousness. And yeah, so So those were some of the brain waves measurements. And then there's, I had the galvanic skin response on, and temperature sensors and heart rate sensors. And in those kind of amplified energy states, there was definitely an elevation of the skin conductivity. There was elevation of the heart rate. There was elevation of temperature in the body. And
sort of reminds me of a monk sitting in the snow, right? And having the snow melt around them. It's like you're just physically turned on in the.
Yeah. So your energy system is turned on.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like. Okay. Yeah. Now you can debate what's happening, but here's some physiological correlations with that. And in the meditation sequence, after you have that sense, then you can really go into these more subtle states with this real clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you have
sustained attention too.
Yeah. It's
right.
Like sensory clarity, but also that fog of thought thinking and
right. So
out.
Right. So you're not gonna just get into this sort of dreamy, not really aware, in and out, can't sort of state. There's this deep peace and stillness and silence and space and nothing, and that's sustained, I think, because of the energy that's been produced prior to that.
And so from just kind of going back for comparison, in the jhana world, Ajahn Brahm, that would be like the PT phase, right? That high energy joy.
Sukha,
and then you drop into the.
And then that leads you naturally, as a natural progression, into absorption and stillness.
Yeah.
Right. And then that leads you to space and consciousness and nothing and beyond perception.
Rigpa, or whatever you would want, Samadhi, or whatever, however it might have been described.
Yeah.
Recognize.
Yeah. So Samadhi,
I know Samadhi has
different flavors of Samadhi.
Yeah.
But it's a related system of layers of experience. Yeah.
Right. So, and that has been how it's felt to me when I've registered high gamma as well, like literally plugged in or turned on, like the sockets are connected with an incredible amount of sensory clarity. And attention staying very on.
And not because you're holding it there. Like that's the thing about the subtle energy meditation, is when these subtle energies, we're awakened to them, they are like a magnet. It's like it just kind of draws you in and holds you there. It's just an effortless concentration. Yeah.
It's a beautiful place to land when that happens.
Yeah. So now, in all those descriptions, then people, and I think one of the things we're going to talk about is some pitfalls.
Let's do that.
Right. So, so people hear these descriptions, right, and they come to it and they're expecting, oh, that's what I want to experience, and I'm going to keep trying until I have that experience. Okay. So, it's important to recognize that fully embodying each phase of the meditation will naturally lead towards the next phase. So the very first phase of interoception, mindfulness, sensory clarity, equanimity, right? That, like, equanimity has to come first, right? That sensory, like really heightened sensory clarity and equanimity is the foundation. So equanimity being, I'm not grasping at something or pushing something away, right? I'm simply present with it, and I'm allowing everything to rise and dissolve, and I'm not grasping after something. But that, you know, even though we're guiding people in that way, still it's like, oh, I want to feel what he said. I want to feel that. So it's important that that foundation of being able to awaken sensory awareness and sensory clarity and equanimity, that is primary, right? And if that's primary and you're really tuning in, then focus is going to happen more easily. You're going to sense the natural energy flow that's already here. You're not making this happen. You're just tuning into what's already happening. And then that concentration will naturally open up these more subtle sensations that are already there because we've let go, we've relaxed, we've let go of striving and trying and wanting to have an experience and expectations. And even though that may pull us into practice, we have to actually let go of that as we sink into practice and allow it to naturally unfold. And then the other thing, and this is a real pitfall in our culture where we're used to just buying things and having them, right? We're used to very immediate, right? Oh, I want that. I have it now, right? That's I don't think we can underrate how much consumerism affects our consciousness, and that we're thinking that anything we want, we want it right now, and we're going to have it right now. And these natural sensations and this awakened energy is something that for me happened over the course of decades, right? So decades.
Yeah.
Decades. So I first started to feel some sensory awakening in my palms, and the top of my head, and the bottoms of my feet, my heart, lower abdomen, and then through all the internal organ. Like this happened through practicing over decades.
Yeah.
And there are many different sensations associated with subtle energy, and all of them can be tuned into, and all of them are part of the process. So yeah, we've talked about feeling plugged in and tingling and charged, but there's also, and heat, right? But there's also cold. There's numbness. There's feeling of void. There's feeling of itching. There's feelings of twitching of the muscle. Like all these are felt correlates of subtle energy in the body. So anything we feel, or sometimes we feel just like I've had a lot of people tell me when they go inside, there's just this blackness, I don't feel anything. But that's actually a felt sensory quality of awareness. So that go into that, right? You can sense into that, to that darkness and that seeming void, and you discover, well, actually it's alive with awareness. It's an expression of awareness too. It's like everything we sense is an expression of awareness. We might feel a pain in the back. So we can go into that. We can go into that and really tune into that with the interoception and mindfulness and equanimity, and notice the subtle fluctuations in that sensation. And that can open us into the wave-like quality of energy. And if we go into anything, really any thought or any emotion or any sensation in the body, and we really pay close attention to it, we discover that it's not this thing, it's actually a fluctuation. it kind of moves between opposites. It has a very subtle flow to it. It may intensify and it may dissipate, right? So everything becomes an opportunity for awareness, and every type of sensation becomes an opportunity for awareness, and a doorway and a portal into awareness. And so I think that's really, people know that going in to meditation, that every single thing that happens in meditation is part of meditation. And as you're aware of it, that is meditation. As you're aware of it in a sensory way, in a felt sense, you're tuning into your energy system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just
tuning into the modulations and fluctuations of the field, right? And then as you do that in subtler sense, you arrive at this kind of 0 point, which is the origin and the destiny of all these modulations.
So the trap of attainment.
The trap of attainment. Yeah. It can also be the trap of measurement. Right?
Measurement. Yeah, sure.
Right. And comparison and all these things. And really it's being present, right? It's tuning in. It's awakening sensory awareness. It's approaching that with equanimity and gentleness and compassion. And whatever arises. And really feeling those fine shifts in whatever you're paying attention to that leads you beyond the changing and shifting into the underlying unchanging. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes, I mean, what you're saying makes so much sense because, you know, fundamentally, as all the great sages have said, I mean, there's nowhere to get to. Enlightenment has to already be here. It has to. So it's more of developing sensory clarity so that we can
perceive what is.
Perceive it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we're just trying to hone our perception to be so clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're tuning into these finer and finer sensations. And that can begin with very uncomfortable or coarse or physical felt sense. And so we can go into that and discover, it's kind of like when you go put something under a microscope, right? And first you see it, oh, it's just this blob of liquid, but then you turn it up and oh, it's all these different cells. And then if you can turn it up, like to the quantum level, right? Then it's really just this space and these potentialities, these flickers of coming into and out of this empty space. But it's all the same thing, right? It's just viewing it with a finer and finer instrument, so to speak. Yeah.
And if we kind of zoom out and say, okay, go beyond with subtle energy meditation, what we're really saying is using subtle energy in the body as the vehicle or the tool to refine our ability to perceive to such a fine level that it takes us all away.
Yes. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's providing a sequence of layers of what we can tune into, from things that we can, you can stomp your feet on the ground and you can feel your feet, it feels solid, and okay, I can feel that. But if you can really now feel into that and feel into the sensory quality in the soles of your feet, you start to notice that there's these kind of fluctuations of sensation. And as we tune into them deeper and deeper, it feels kind of more amorphous, more less defined. And then pretty soon it feels like space. And if you can't feel the difference between your feet and the ground. And right, so you can go through any coarse sensation and just go, okay, now deeper into that and deeper into that and deeper into that. And again, you know, that's a metaphor, you know, it's not necessarily deeper. It's, you can think it's broader and broader and broader, or, you know, you can, but it's just that going through into a finer and finer perception.
Right. So really, to summarize the sort of pitfalls of practice, you know, it's the attainment itself, or comparison or measurement, which so many people do on Heart Mind Alchemy Lab. So it's something that I think we have to be really aware of, that we're measuring, because there's some really useful things you can.
And you can notice some things. And it's also really fascinating to the mind, right? It's engaging. People, you know, when you look at your graph and you're like, oh, you know, look at that change. I focused in this way, or I adjusted my attention in this way, and look, it changed how my brain was working. That's pretty interesting, right? And it's like, oh, maybe I can, let's see if I can, you know, fine tune that and notice a change. Oh, look, now it's because what's happening is internal, and it can feel very hard to get a handle on. We like things that are like, see here, that's what it was, right? And it wasn't that, but it's a nice correlate that is interesting to the mind. And it gives us, as Randy is always telling us, it gives you something wonderful to share, right? It's a great, people like to share graphs, and it becomes a point of discussion, and people are interested in, oh, how did you do that? And what practice are you doing? And it becomes a means of community and discussion, and leading everybody, inspiring people and each other in your practice, and all that. So
yeah, or as you know,
it can be a great tools, and interesting to realize physiological correlates and notice them, but they aren't the heart of the practice, right? The heart of the practice is the inner felt sense, the change in perception, and the change in consciousness, and how we relate to ourselves and others and all of life. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you said, I'll just read this because it's so beautiful. Meditative absorption facilitates crossover into transcendence. In transcendence, you move beyond the content of awareness into still, silent, spacious awareness of awareness itself. The field of pure consciousness beyond form, the matrix from which all experiences emerge and which into all experiences dissolve.
Yeah, so having that not knowing it here, but actually feeling that. Like when I was studying phenomenology, studied Martin Heidegger, and he had this metaphor of, can you sit on the fence between being and non-being, and just sit on that fence and notice things coming into being and going into non-being? Can you sit right there, kind of right at that line of the 0 point, and just rest there? And so you're kind of aware of the moment of creation and the moments of dissolution, and sitting there transforms your consciousness.
I love that. Sitting on the fence of being and non-being.
Yeah.
That's great. Wow. Well, thank you. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you would like to say, or comment on as we wrap up? It's almost been an hour.
Yeah, time goes fast when you're talking this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, well, I just want to encourage everyone in their practice that in this non-comparison, this curious, gentle, self-compassionate approach to meditation, so that as you sit for as short or as long as it is, hold that gentle, compassionate approach, that whatever arises, you're paying attention to that and honoring that and valuing that and seeing that as a portal into a deeper and deeper awareness. And it's not about getting anywhere. It's actually about really being right here now and feeling this in a deep, open, compassionate way.
Rick Hansen has a phrase, sitting on the front edge of now, which I really like. It feels that way to me when and I use that as a cue for myself. Just, can I sit on the front edge of now? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing. And Stephen's really good about this, is just noticing what cues work well for you, right? Because each of us have different cues that something about the way those words tune us into a felt sense that takes us into this deep awareness here and now. And that those cues are very individual. Like different people say, oh yeah, and that cue of just sitting in the center of your brain and listening to silence there and feeling stillness there, like that. People say, oh, that really did it. Or somebody else, I remember you talking about that cue of the palpability of stillness, right? You talked a lot about that. And, and then, Randy has talked about how the cue of the beauty of the breath and the bodhicitta, and how that, those, just that, that felt just brings you into a felt sense that transforms your practice. So finding those cues that really just, for some reason, just click in your own consciousness, and they will be unique to you, kind of like unique keys that you're given that will kind of open up awareness in a deeper way.
I so agree, because it just working with people and in my own experience, it's just amazing how a couple well-timed keys unlock the door.
And it might just, in a moment, it just hits you, and like it just takes you right into this felt sense. And from then on, it's like a secret key for you. It's just, whenever I, for me, it's right from the moment when I feel my feet on the ground and my hands in my lap, and I sink down into that. I just immediately feel fully present and here and awake to this sensory quality of awareness. And so yeah, discover those cues for that are unique to you, and they'll lead you to other ones, and it's a never-ending path, right?
Well, and I really take to heart what you said, like it took me decades to develop this, because I think you're so right that, in our culture where we're sort of trying to supercharge our, awakening or, quicken the path. And it's like, we have to realize this delicate balance between, sure, I mean, are there techniques and things that can help bring you to those still places
Mhm.
quicker? I think there are. I think, I really believe in the power of sound, for example, to
Mhm.
facilitate openings. So
Mhm.
it's not that there aren't helpful tools.
They're definitely helpful tools.
And
And I think Stephen and my bias would be that they're in this body, heart, mind system right here. And sound, we can vocalize
yeah,
sounds that do it. And breath is right here. And body sensation is right here. And so really to value this amazing, intelligent, bioenergetic body, heart, mind, right? It's here. It's there's no technology we've developed that even scratches 1% of this that's here, this technology right here. It's unfathomable, the way it works, and we barely have scratched the surface of understanding that.
yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that's a really elegant place to conclude, that the beauty of this incredible system that we've already got.
Yeah.
The nothing that tops that.
Yes.
So we plenty of room to explore our own body. And subtle energy meditation is really designed to help, but the system to help you do that is how it
Yes,
seems.
exactly. Right. It's designed to help you understand and tune into this amazing body, heart, mind, spirit, energy field, cosmos that we live in.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom and being a leader and teacher and mentor in helping us explore our own subtle energy system.
Well, thank you, Holly, for all that you're doing, the wonderful work you're doing, and you're really carving a wonderful space here and bringing this to so many people. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. And I hope you can come back on again and we'll dive into another yummy
Yeah,
topic.
I'd love to. Love to. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you,
you.
everybody who watched today, and just wishing you all blessings and love wherever you are in the world.
Yes. Enjoy your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy your practice. All right. Bye-bye.